this is the new way to defend yourself. Not me. I didn't do it. Everyone's out to get me. You know, so this is a message to all of you out there. From now on, I'll give you a good example. In my home, my wife sometimes will bake some cookies and bring them in. Or into a family event. I've been known throughout the years to steal said cookies. A couple. 2, 3 maybe. I get called on it. I turn around and I say, yep, that was me. Sorry. They were sitting there. They're delicious. They're great cookies. No more. I am no longer admitting guilt to anything I do. From now on, no, I didn't eat it. Wasn't me. You guys are out to get me. Oh, because I'm a little overweight and I don't exercise? You assume I'm the one who ate the cookies? No. No, I'm not doing it anymore. I am not copping to anything. I'm not admitting anything. I'm blaming everybody else. And I'm going to finger point and finger point and finger point until people believe what I'm saying. That's it from now on. I am never at fault for anything I do. Nothing. I can do whatever I want. Today, if I speed home and I get pulled over, stop my you're out to get me. Why are you out to get me? This is what I'm going to do from now on. I'm going to point the finger at other people. I am no longer responsible for my own actions. This is apparently acceptable in our society. And that's what I'm going to do. We have a person who's basically going back to interview for the highest job in our land. Unfortunately, he already had that job. And his defense is everyone's evil, everyone's against me, people don't like me, I did nothing. That's awesome. If this is how society is going to work from now on, because there's millions of you who support that, I'm going to start doing it in my own way. It's not my fault. Didn't do it. 20 fingers. Your fault. I don't know. That's how it's going to be. Apparently, that's something. Obviously, you all know. What a joke. The fact that there's so many of you that support that person, that's a huge joke. Wake up. Wake up. Start to vote for people in office that has to be done. On both sides. All right, I'm done with that. Oh, by the way, that rant wasn't my fault. It's not my fault. My anger is not my own. It's not of my own doing. It's somebody else's fault. All right. Cardinals. We're going to keep ranting. We're going to talk to Andy Carroll, of course, about this some more. Look, I have crow to eat. Mark Langston knows. If you're listening, Mark. The last show I did a ha. I told you, just wait, see, everything's going to be fine. Sit back. Cardinals have won 22 winning seasons in 23 years. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Now I got it. We're in mid-June. They are 15 games under 500. Their winning percentage going into yesterday was .397. So we were right at 40%. Lost again yesterday. Make sure we threw another. And let me give you a statistic. I saw this. It was named source. So I don't like to post about with others without giving them credit. Raymond Kiley, this show on the sports show here in St. Louis, posted it on Twitter. Now there's a public for you to see. There has been no team in Major League Baseball history, not one team, with a winning percentage 397 or less after 68 games ever finished 500. Not one. It's never happened. And the best was apparently a Detroit Tigers team. I can't remember what he said what year it was, but they ended up like 4 games. It has never happened. We have never in the history of Major League Baseball seen a team with this record, this stage of the season, over 500 the rest of the year just to win 81 games. They want to make the playoffs. That's going to have to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 teams over 500 less than the year. Have a shot at it. Because you got to get the 90 points. Right ballpark. They're toast. I'm not saying wave the white flag and just call up all your prospects, but I think moves need to be made on the roster. So there's two things at play. I also heard MLB show host Fred Gates here from St. Louis on Southern Station this morning. I heard him talking about how on earth can the Cardinals fire Bobby Bonilla. He's doing everything they ask him to do. Playing the guys they want him to play. Following the analytics like they want him to. Calling up players, sending players down. Whatever front office is telling him to do, he's doing it. So why on earth should they fire him? He's doing what they want him to do. What were the overhaul that needs to be made is the roster. Think about this. I mentioned this a year ago. In 22 of the last 23 years, the Cardinals have had winning seasons. Which means, and I'm going to say it's probably 25 years or more since the Cardinals sellers. 25, that's half my life. Where they've never had to sell. They've never had been in a losing position to where they can retool, restock with youth and talent in the minor leagues and build for the future. They've never had to do it. The system has worked. The system worked for a long time. I think the system, to a degree, still could work. It needs to be tweaked. I'll talk about that in a second. But that system is draft well, develop well, use those prospects, some of them on the roster, others trades, establish that. Look at all the years Jockey and Mosaic. Same philosophy. Their success is in major trades. And then they trade for that player and then sign a long term. And for recognition. Marcus McGwire, Scott Roll, Matt Holliday, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldman, all these players were trade then signed. So the Cardinals use their minor leagues to go get veteran players, good players, so that they could maintain their winning ability to compete for playoffs. But the system is not working. And the reason is part of it is like misevaluation of talent. They traded away Randy Arozarena without ever really putting it in. They traded for Marcell Ozuna, two pitchers they traded for studs, Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen. So that plays into it. They sort of misevaluated some of their internal talent. And then the other thing is they refuse to get into the external long-term free agent. They just don't get in. They've never done it. Look over the years. Wilson Contreras is probably the biggest one. That was a huge 5-year deal. We're talking about players in their mid to late 20s, 10-year deals, $300 million. We're not current Cardinals. Or that we get traded. They don't get involved in any of that. To a point, I agree with that philosophy. But you're really put all the way in the basket. Yet, a lot of players, there's been a lot of players, there's a lot of money, long-term deals that are in that money since then, and that play is not there. I get it. But they have to do a better job of getting involved, especially for the staff. all-star team. Make those trades. Those all do a good job bringing all they develop something for sure. Need some trades. But there's got to be a tweak to this hardcore way. There's got to be a tweak to this where they get a little bit more involved. But where they stand right now, so I have a little, I'm going to name all my money. I've got a little friend group, a little text chat, where we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. Basically, a little text chat. There's a lot of off-color. However, there is a lot of baseball talk. My buddies, Roger Gonzalez, Dave Sandler, Richard Vernon Stallings, Lee Albert, and hello, David Newman. Hello. All right. Anyway, yesterday my buddy gave me a text, and it was actually, it is exactly what I was thinking. This is the first time. They don't have to rebuild. There's still enough here to work around where you can retool all of it. You can retool it. You can also trade for some young major league ready players. But his thinking, and I agree with him, is trade. No one is off the table in terms of trade except for these four players: Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, Matthew Liberatore, who is, I'm telling you, he's going to be a stud, big lefty pitcher, and Nolan Arenado. I would throw Lars Nootbaar on that list, but I mean, if you could fetch a really nice return for him, then maybe not. But I think I'd put Lars Nootbaar on that list. So let's just put him on there. Those five players: Walker, Gorman, Arenado, and Nootbaar. So that's four everyday players, three of them young, one of them established. Yes, I would trade Paul Goldschmidt. Yes, I would trade Tommy Edman, Brendan Donovan. Tyler O'Neill is not going to get anything on the market because he's always hurt. Dylan Carlson, I would take a look at trading. The whole pitching staff, with the exception of Liberatore, I would try to package to get return. Why not? This is the first time you could take advantage of this. And then you retool the roster, you reset your minor league system and your prospects and your major league ready young talent. And then you build this thing back up quickly. You can do it quickly because you've got 4 or 5 guys that will be here. And by the way, this is my 5 guys. I'm sure the Cardinals have a list of 7 or 8 or 9 guys, right? But off the 40-man roster, everyone's available except, to me, those 5 guys: Walker, Gorman, Liberatore, Arenado, and Nootbaar. Goldschmidt, by the way, he's a free agent after next year. He's 37. He won an MVP. He's been awesome. I love Paul Goldschmidt. But there's a team out there that's in contention that could use Paul Goldschmidt, and they will overpay to get him. This is the year to do it. There's a team out there that is willing to overpay for a player like Tommy Edman, who can play multiple positions. He can steal a base. He's good defensively. He's a spark plug. I know we just signed Wilson Contreras. I know we did. There's a team out there that could use a designated hitter, and his contract is set. They won't overpay because he's got a 5-year deal. But what I'm saying is, this is a great opportunity for the Cardinals. And all you Cardinal fans out there will say, oh, we're giving up in June. That's great. Yeah, this is a great mentality. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying – what I'm saying is, we've been so accustomed to winning and so spoiled for 25 years. This is the first time we've lost and lost big. Don't let the moment pass thinking you can get back in this thing. Your history, I just gave you the history. No team has ever gotten back into it with this record at this point in the season. Not one, ever.
Here's a couple other thoughts my buddy Newman had on what to do with some players, which, again, I agree with. Free agent rentals teams could want. Montgomery, your left-handed pitcher, who is a free agent after this year, he helped us last year when he got here. He could help a team down the road, right? Jack Flaherty, who has been up and down with the Cardinals. I don't think there's a chance he's going to stay here when he hits free agency anyway. Take advantage of his youth and potential. Go get something for him. Jordan Hicks throws 100 miles an hour. You're telling me there's not a team in contention that could use a 100-mile-an-hour flamethrower out of the bullpen? Stratton, another bullpen arm that could be used. Heck, I think someone might want Paul DeJong since he's resurged and been better. Now, look, he's been slumping again lately, but he plays great defense. He's top 3 in the league in WAR for shortstops. The guy is a positive player right now. Take advantage of that momentum. Don't let him continue to slump. Make a move. Someone would want Paul DeJong. I don't know how much you could get for him, but you could get something. There's a couple free agents that come post 2024, but are close enough to free agency that you could make good deals on. Gallegos, Edman, Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill. And then, as my buddy says, load up on the volume of prospects, increase odds. So when you load up, you increase the odds that some of them pan out, right? And then bring up Mason Wynn from the minor leagues. He's the young shortstop, stud shortstop, number 1 in your system at shortstop. You bring him up, you let him play every day. You let Nolan Gorman play every day. You let Jordan Walker play every day. And if you don't trade Dylan Carlson, you let him play every day until he proves he can't hit. And if he still can't hit, maybe you do something with him in the offseason if you don't trade him at the deadline. Make sure Liberatore is starting every 5 days to get him ready for next year. And then we've got that young stud in the minors, McGreevy, a young pitcher. You call that guy up late in the season, maybe August, and let him start for 2 months and get him ready for next year. So, again, this is a chance to reboot, to retool. Not rebuild, not tear down the whole thing and rebuild. You're going to have a handful of guys that are going to keep you competitive. More than a handful, probably. But we have plenty on this roster. Look, there's a team out there that would want a guy like Juan Yepes, who we keep sending to the minor leagues. I'm tired of the up and down with Jake Woodford. Jake Woodford is young. You deal some of these veteran pitchers, call him back up and let him start every 5 days. Let's retool. Let's reset. This is a great opportunity. You know, everyone's like, this is terrible. The Cardinals are losing. Fire everybody. Mo's the worst. Gersh is bad. Fire Marmol. Blah, blah. I get it. But how about take a step back and realize we've had it really good. Better than 90% of the fan bases in Major League Baseball. We've had it really good for 25 years. This is the first time the Cardinals can actually step back and say, all right, let's reset this thing. Let's get younger. Let's get some prospects. Let's get some draft picks. Let's get some young, maybe major league ready talent. And let's go forward next year. And let's get some of these guys up that are our future and give them some experience here down the stretch. To tell you the truth, that kind of excites me. I'm really kind of excited about that. For the first time, we can actually be sellers and see what we get back for some of our players. See what our young guys look like. Get ready for 2024 with a much younger and more athletic and perhaps more exciting team. I know this summer's going to be terrible to watch, but it does make me excited for maybe how they can retool and reset this thing, because we've never seen it. Well, I've seen it because I'm old. You guys, 25 years old and younger, have never seen it. You have never seen a losing Cardinals team this bad anyway. So my buddy Dave Newman, good job on that. I totally agree with all you're saying, with everything you're saying. And I am really, really, it makes me excited if they do it. But the Cardinals, sometimes they get in their own way and they step back and go, well, no, we're good. We still have good play. If you look at the names on the roster, we do have some good players, but they're terrible. Let's just call it what it is. They're terrible. They're 16 games under 16 games under 500. They're not coming back from this. They're not. Strike while the iron is cold. Strike while the iron is cold. For the first time in 25 years, you can reset. Get younger. I'm sort of excited to see how they play this. I really hope they play it correctly, because the way my buddy Newman and my other buddies on our text chain, the way we kind of talk about it is the way it should go down, because we, of course, are armchair GMs. We know what we're doing. By the way, that whole Cardinal segment, not my fault. I just want everybody to know it's not my fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's not my fault. That's my line from here on out. All right, Andy Carroll is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk. XFL had some disturbing news come out this week. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about what I just talked about with the Cardinals. And before we go to break, shout out to the Denver Nuggets for winning the NBA championship. All the national pundits who are like, Jokic can't win a third straight MVP. He doesn't win NBA titles. All you millionaire sports analysts on national TV, when Jokic should have won a third MVP because he's the only one in the league who averaged a triple-double, what does he do? He wins an NBA championship. I hope you're happy that Joel Embiid won the MVP. He deserved it. He was good. He was one of the best players in the league. But the fact that you went against the Joker because you hadn't won anything, which has nothing to do with the MVP award, now you've all got egg on your face, and that makes me happy. Doesn't make me happy that Stan Kroenke has now won 4 championships in 4 different sports over the last 2 years. That does not make me happy. And as a matter of fact, it was so gross watching him hold up the NBA championship trophy. Again, I still dislike Stan Kroenke. Okay, we're going to go to break. Andy Carroll, bottom of the hour. We'll be right back here in the Mole Hole. Folks, it's time to let You've Got Maids focus on cleaning your home so you can focus on life. Whether you need weekly, bi-weekly, one-time cleaning, your home will be cleaned to your highest expectations. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. You can get a free no-obligation estimate today. See how little it can cost to have all of your house cleaning needs met by You've Got Maids and their trained maids. All you have to do is go to you'vegotmaids.com, enter your zip code and a little bit of information about your dwelling, and they'll come back immediately with a free estimate. You've Got Maids offers cleaning services ranging from deep cleaning to simple everyday cleaning on a schedule that matches yours. Live well, laugh often, love much. Stop cleaning your house. Turn it over to You've Got Maids at you'vegotmaids.com.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
Are you a company who needs help recruiting and hiring full-time professionals in the areas of engineering or information technology? Then call Steve Tucker at Talent Edge. Steve has over 25 years experience in recruiting as a partner and can really give you the edge you need. Also, calling all candidates looking for new opportunities in engineering or IT. Steve will help match your skill set to the right opportunity. 314-276-0074 or check out Talent Edge at talentedgellc.net. Once again, 314-276-0074. Talent Edge Digital is a full-service digital marketing agency that helps local businesses grow online. They offer everything from logo and branding to website design, search engine optimization, and paid advertising on Google and Facebook. Height was just named to the top marketing agency list for 2022 by St. Louis Small Business Monthly. Contact them today for a free digital audit to see how you can grow. That's Height Digital, HITE digital.com/ST-Louis. We are back in the mole hole this morning, and joining me now on our celebrity line, it is Andy Carroll from Scoops with Danny Mac, and I always like having Andy on. His perspective is fresh, and I love it. Andy, good morning. Thank you for joining the show.
Randy, I love being your favorite celebrity. Thanks for having me on.
All right, first, before we get to the Cardinals, let's start with the news that came out of the XFL. The league lost apparently $60 million this year. Does that concern you at all for the league's viability going forward?
Yes, it does. I think that it's something that from the reports that I've read and the people that I've talked to, it was expected that the league obviously would have a loss in its first year. That's not uncommon, for any business that's starting, in its first year of operations to have a loss. But, it does sound to me that they're committed at least to carrying in the season number 2. All indications from following, the Rock's communications on Twitter is that they're having meetings. They cut some jobs. They fired some people in their marketing department. They're going to have a new strategy. I think some of the things that they did in terms of marketing were very successful. If you watch any of that Player 54 documentary on ESPN, it was really well done. It's really neat that they would take you, inside the locker rooms and inside the meeting rooms. And, I think that they certainly could still improve upon what they were doing. More than anything, I think they need to reevaluate the markets that they're in. Vegas is not a place where they need to be. Orlando's probably not, a place where they need to be. And they had some success in DC. I think you can find the right NFL market to be in as well. It doesn't have to just be markets that are not NFL markets. If you put a team perhaps in Pittsburgh, or maybe in, Wisconsin, maybe not Green Bay, but you put one in Milwaukee. You and I talked a little bit about some of the other locations that I think make sense, both from a travel perspective. Do we need to fly out of the hub from Dallas to Vegas when maybe a shorter hop to like an Omaha, Nebraska would draw 25,000 fans, football, crazy atmosphere. There are other professional sports teams kind of having the market to itself at that time of the year. So I do think that when it comes to having, people that come through the gate and buy tickets, there's better places for the XFL to strategically place themselves. I don't think that being in those larger markets really makes a difference on TV. The football is a national game. You're not drawing a whole bunch of Vegas, eyeballs just because, that's the name on the front of the jersey. So, I think that would be a good place to start in terms of trying to develop a more sustainable model. But I do think that they're committed at the very least to seeing out next year. And really, year 2, 3, and 4, if they make it that far, are going to be the critical years to determine if they're sustainable. I do think that they have a better model than either of the 2 previous XFL, attempts. And I think it's paramount that you and I have talked about before too, that a spring league succeed. There needs to be a space. And I do think that one of the things that's going to help the league is you're going to see a couple of these guys from the XFL make a difference on NFL rosters in the fall. And I think we'll probably continue to see some NFL veterans. Philip Lindsay's a good example that pops into my mind. Here's a former Pro Bowl running back that jumped into the XFL kind of halfway through the season and decided, hey, this league, looks competitive. It's a place where I can go. Instead of working out and hoping to catch on in minicamp, I can go get some game reps now, put something on tape, and kind of relaunch my career from there. So I think you'll see more guys do that, and I think that'll bring more credibility to the league when you have guys coming the other way who have had success in the NFL, not unlike AJ McCarron, who had some success in the NFL, decided that the XFL was a good place to come back, play again, get on the field, be that guy who's getting the ball. and then see where his career goes from there. So I think both of those things will help the XFL drive its credibility. They're going to put guys into the NFL that fans had never heard of before, that are going to be able to trace their success back to the XFL, and then they're going to be a place for some reclamation projects, guys who have had success in the NFL that are going to drive some fan interest, I think, going forward.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. And the thing you have to get past, and how how the spring football can get past this, I don't really know. I'm not a marketing genius, but culturally in this country, football is played in the fall and the winter. And once football season is over, like the casual fan doesn't seem right now anyway all that interested in spring football. And look, I get that, but I don't know how to defeat that. And I think, to your point, you got to find some cities that are football starved, that would look like St. Louis, that want to have pro football in their town, that will go out and support that product, spend money on tickets, spend money on gear, watch the games. And as imagine the loss XFL would have taken without St. Louis in it this year. I mean, that's so you're right. It does kind of surprise me that Orlando was so dead. But I get it. Summertime, springtime in Orlando, I mean, there's not a lot of, I agree with you on Omaha. I feel like, I wonder if much like St. Louis, bringing a team back to San Diego would do any good. I wonder if, Oakland is losing every pro sports team they have. Would there be some fans who would show up for spring football in Oakland? I don't know, but I agree with you. You've got to make some changes to the cities hosting teams so that you can draw more interest, because it's not just drawing interest to pro football. It's drawing interest to pro football at a time of year when we are conditioned to not watch football.
Well, and that's a great point that you bring up about Oakland too, Randy. And I think that is a fantastic idea. And I think we've talked too about, some of the ways that the league could market to its fans. I think one of the ways you draw in the casual fans, and, I'll admit myself, St. Louis, of course, has its story. And I think the league has embraced, how to approach the St. Louis market and fan base in a positive way. The DC fan base with their beer snake is fun.
Yeah.
And that's not something that the XFL said, hey, you guys should make a beer snake. That developed organically. And sometimes the best ways to really develop passionate fans is to allow them to, come up with their own traditions and their own, quirky things that they like to do to have fun at the stadium, and then embrace that. And there was initially some resistance, I think, from, Audi Field and the league saying, we shouldn't do this. No, that's exactly the kind of thing, the passion that you want to kind of play into and have fun with. And I think Oakland would be a great market like that. They have a reputation for being very colorful fans, let's say. So, I think those are the types of fan bases that you want to allow them to kind of develop their own characteristics that in a minor league sense are kind of colorful and character. They have character. They're maybe not something that you would see in an NFL stadium. That's a little bit more of a corporate feel to it. And then you need to embrace that identity. And I think that's what the league would be well served to do.
Yeah, and by the way, down the road, and by the way, I got some blowback for this on Twitter. I posted on Twitter. You probably saw it. And you and I have talked about this. I feel like if you want to draw some interest, more interest in spring football, then do something that makes the ultimate goal of the league a little bit more fun and interesting. And I'm not saying do this tomorrow, but it would seem to me down the road, if the XFL and USFL could get together and say, all right, let's play at the same time of year. You guys have these networks. We have these networks. And at the end of the season, our champ plays your champ. And then we've got a sort of a United States spring football championship game between an XFL champ and a USFL champ. And if you could somehow convince the Canadian Football League, who plays a large part of their season in the spring and summer, to get to commit to agree to play their Grey Cup champion, which, by the way, should be better than any of the XFL or USFL champs, kind of like the old NFL, AFL days. But if you could convince the Canadian Football League to play their champ against ours for a North American Spring Football Championship, I just feel like for a casual fan to sit back and go, hey, am I going to watch spring football? Well, wait a minute. This is kind of cool. We got these two leagues. Then their champions will play against each other, and then we get to go play the CFL champ. I don't know. To me, that seems fun. It seems out of box. It seems more interesting to me as a casual fan.
Yeah, this is probably a bad analogy, but professional football in the hierarchy of American sports, when the AFL and the NFL decided to get together and play, what would become the Super Bowl, they were well behind baseball, boxing. They were not the NFL that they are today in terms of dominating the sports calendar. So yeah, I think that was initially, hey, this will be something fun. We're going to merge. We'll take what was, an AFL style of football that was very different from the style of football, the brand of football that teams in the NFL played. And so it offered a contrast. I think, to your point, it would be fun to watch some contrasting styles. And maybe the CFL or USFL would offer that to the XFL. So I certainly don't think it would hurt.
Yeah, and look, this pie in the sky thinking, right? It's just when you sit around and you brainstorm a little and you go, what could just make the whole thing a little more interesting? Because I don't look. I can tell you, I didn't watch one USFL game, and not that I wouldn't. It's just that, again, the only reason I watched the XFL, to be honest, I would have been just a casual fan if not for St. Louis. I worked for St. Louis. I was their PA announcer, and I had an interest in the league because my team was in the league. So, but I can tell you as a casual fan, if there were something cool and different and fun about the way they work the championships between these leagues, I'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. That's kind of cool. I think I'd watch that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it should happen next year. It seems pie in the sky. It seems like a lot of logistics, but it's just, I don't know, something to draw more interest to spring football.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, the one thing I'm drawing positive from is that I do think there'll be a year two in St. Louis. I think St. Louis's fan base will return. It sounds like head coach Anthony Beck's dead set on returning. So, we'll see what the roster shakes out to be. They're having a showcase here later this month in St. Louis for players that want to try out. So, all indications seem to be that we're heading for a next year of XFL football, and I'm excited for that. I think St. Louis continues to be excited for it, so it should be fun.
Yeah, and I am super. Look, there's just now another element for me when the NFL season starts, because you can bet that when those final rosters are out, I'm going to be combing every roster to see how many Battlehawks are on NFL rosters. That's one of those things that's just another element of excitement for me, because I want to follow these guys now, and I'm sure a lot of St. Louis fans do too, to see where they end up. And I'm really excited to see if any of it pans out. I did want to ask you, look, this is just my opinion. I get it. They have a central location for training and everything down in Texas. But with the way the fans supported the Battlehawks this year, I would be a little disappointed if the XFL didn't put the XFL championship game in St. Louis next year.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that the crowd that they had in San Antonio was overwhelming enough for that championship game to lay claim to it again in the future. So I do think that St. Louis would be a great site to host it, and should get some consideration. I haven't asked anybody in the league, but perhaps I'll try to get that answer and see if they're considering it. I think that the facility makes sense. The Dome's done a good job hosting it. It certainly could, fit 30,000 people. And there's no doubt that even if the Battlehawks weren't playing in it, that there'd be enough football interest and appreciation of the sport to come support it at that level.
Andy Carroll from Scoops with Danny Mac joining me here this morning. All right, let's talk about, I've already gone on a rant here in the first segment, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. So it's the Cardinals, and Andy, it's been, 25 years, maybe longer, since this team has been in a position where they could be major sellers. If you think about it, that's half my lifetime. The amount of success this organization has seen in terms of winning records, playoff appearances, is 90% of better than 90% of the league. And this is the first time, I don't know if you heard my stat earlier, before yesterday, after 68 games, there hasn't been one team in Major League Baseball with a 397 winning percentage or worse after 68 games that finished the season 500. Not one in the history of baseball. So history tells us this team is done. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to win the division. They're not going to get in the wild card. And it is 100% guaranteed, according to history, they won't even get to 500. So what do you do?
Yeah, I'll answer your question, but before that, I'll go on a little version of my own rant, and I'll start that by saying one of my favorite stats. I think as a Cardinal fan, it's a stat that makes me as proud as the 11 World Championships do. In National League history, since 1990, every National League team has finished last in the National League at least once since 1990, except the St. Louis Cardinals. The last time they finished last in the National League was 1918.
Yep.
And here we are midway through June, and there's at least it's not being melodramatic to say that it's possible that this team finishes last in the National League. So, that to your point about sustained success and, the pride of this organization historically, I think that stat does as much as any to tell you about that. So, what I see, and I think what I would do is what really is alarming to me, is if you look back at recent history, and we're talking about the DeWitt ownership era, the Mozeliak Jocketty era, a defining characteristic of the Cardinals was that they had a very, clear and confident vision of how they expected to win. So it was, we're going to play good defense. We're going to put a Gold Glover in center field. We're going to have a Gold Glover behind the plate. We're going to play strong defense up the middle infield. We're going to get pitchers who can pitch to contact in a pitcher's park. You think that look back at the Cardinal rotations that had success. You had guys like Chris Carpenter, who was a reclamation project from the Blue Jays that, was injured and left on the side of the road that the Cardinals picked up and turned into a fantastic pitcher. You had Jeff Suppan, who was a journeyman, like the 6th or 7th team he'd played for in his career. And, but he could pitch to contact and would fit what the Cardinals wanted to do. And then they had, of course it helped to have big bats like Albert Pujols and Scott Rowland. It would be silly not to acknowledge that, but they filled that lineup with guys like, Daniel Descalzo and John Jay and David Eckstein. David Eckstein knew his role on the team was to have a 10-pitch at bat in the first inning. That was his role on the team, to go up there and be a pest and rack the pitch count up, tire a guy out before, and hopefully get on base before, the big bats would come up. So everybody understood their roles. The Cardinals knew how they were going to put this team on the field. They knew what personnel they needed to target to go do it, and they did that. And they were very confident about it. And it was one of the things that obviously drove, if you weren't a Cardinals fan, you looked at them and said, oh, look at this bow tying wearing guy that's kind of arrogant. But, he was very confident in what he was doing. He knew where his vision needed to be and how to be aggressive and dictate, to other teams. He was not a passive roster. They did not passively construct their roster. And I think if you look at recent history, actually to go back one more time, one of my favorite John Mozeliak moves was in 2015. So at the end of July in 2015, the Cardinals were 7 games above 500. They were 57-50. They were in second place. They had gone to the World Series in 2011, obviously. They'd gone within 1 game of the World Series in 2012. They went back to the World Series in 2013. So here they are in 2014, 7 games above 500. And he trades 2 fan favorites and clubhouse favorites, in Alan Craig and Joe Kelly. So, people that were beloved in that locker room, for John Lackey, for a guy who had a reputation of being a little bit of an abrasive character, who brought a competitive edge. And, he had his finger on the pulse of that locker room saying, we're missing something in here. There's a complacency that's building that I don't like. And I'm going to shake that up and bring in a John Lackey. And of course, the Mozeliak part of that trade that Bill DeWitt probably loves the best is there was a quirk in his contract that said he'd play for the league minimum the next season. Because of, I think he had missed the season with Boston and his contract was a little unusual in that way. So it was a good business decision for the bottom line. It was the right move for the team. And it wasn't the kind of move, that I think Cardinal fans are unique in sports, and that they very much internalize, their ownership's position of, hey, we can't go out and spend $500 million on somebody. That's not what we can't win that way. And I think Cardinal fans very much accept that as part of, you're right, like we need to be smarter about how we manage our resources and our team. And so there isn't, I can promise you in New York, they're not worried about Stephen Cohen's money, but here they are worried about, DeWitt's money. There's at least that consciousness in your brain. But I think what Cardinal fans have grown accustomed to is we'll be smart. We'll make moves that are smart moves, that are aggressive, proactive. We understand what we need and we'll go get it. And if you look back in recent history, and I think it traces back further than this, but I'll start in 2021. That season was a rough season. They go on a 17-game winning streak, the longest in franchise history. That's sort of improbable. That kind of saves the season. They almost beat the Dodgers in the wild card game there. And then they fire Mike Shildt, which I think you could make a defense for that. I mean, he certainly had some, you could question some of the moves he made tactically during his tenure as a manager. But, what was interesting and just very out of character for the Cardinals was they announced that hiring during the World Series, which you have to get permission from Major League Baseball to do that. And usually that, you do that because you have an outside candidate, or some candidates outside the organization that you want to pursue, and time is of the essence. Well, we know that's not what the case was here. John Mozeliak was obviously going to hire Oliver Marmol. There was no need to, announce that firing when they did. It was almost designed to humiliate Mike Shildt. And I think, it was cited that there were philosophical differences, and I'm just not so sure that there weren't also some pretty personal differences there. So really a sign that this organization had a lot of, internal dissent about what its vision was, how it was going to win, what it needed to do to be a winner. And since then, I think it's just been, all the language out of Mozeliak in the front office is very passive. You hear them talk about, well, a market didn't develop the way we hoped it would for this guy, or we're going to sit back and see how the market develops here before we can really understand what we're going to do. And if you look at, Nolan Arenado, who could have opted out of his contract but chose not to, the Cardinals probably wouldn't have met his market price had he opted out. It would have been hard for them to do that, and probably out of character for them to do that. So they had Jordan Walker playing at third base for most of the season down here in Springfield last year. Then, they 2/3 of the way through the season, they move him into the outfield. Well, now they've got him in the outfield, and you can tell, I mean, that catch he made yesterday was a good catch. He had the athletic ability to recover from what was a terrible route to the ball and a bad read off the bat, but he was very, green in the outfield. Well, that just is, again, I think the outfield mess that this organization has, the mess that it has in its rotation, is just a sign of an organization that's no longer confident in itself. I think, you hear some of the comments that come out of the front office that sound arrogant. I think it's masking a very deep, fear and loss of identity. And now you've seen that manifested on the field. This team plays with no confidence. They don't play with any joy or energy. They expect something to go wrong. Yesterday was another day where it did. And, so my solution, to be honest, Randy, is, something that's realistic that the DeWitts would get behind, is we need to, call the Tampa Bay Rays front office and say, okay, we do it secretly, right? But, what would name your price to some of their key personnel who can bring a fresh outside voice into this organization? Doesn't necessarily have to mean that Mozeliak is out, but I think Mozeliak's kind of hinted that he doesn't see his tenure lasting much longer anyway. They need a new brain trust and a fresh perspective from outside the organization on, how to construct a roster and put together a winning team.
Yeah, and Andy Carroll from Scoops with Danny Mac joining me here this morning. I agree on that as a long-term solution. I mentioned in the first segment, I don't know if you got a chance to hear it. For like right now in the moment, I have a text chain with my buddies, and one of my buddies, Dave Newman, and I see eye to eye on exactly what we think the Cardinals should do. And this is a year, as I said before the break, the Cardinals should strike while the iron is cold. This is it. This is the year. We haven't done this in 25 years. This is a chance to reset everything. You don't have to rebuild. You've got enough young talent that you can still be competitive. You trade away people. You start to look on this roster, 40-man roster. To me, it's Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, Matthew Liberatore, Nolan Arenado, and Lars Nootbaar. Those are the 5 that I'm not trading. Everybody else is on the market. I go to the market and I say, let's go. Let's start, and let's reset the organization. Let's get a bunch of young talent back. Let's see what sticks. Let's see what we can develop. I also mentioned this talk of firing Oli Marmol. You realize that he's doing everything the front office is telling him to do. He's doing everything they're asking him to do. He's doing it exactly the way they want him to do it. and the team isn't performing. So to me, the shakeup of the org comes at the expense of the players, not the manager. You can argue all day long, oh, Ollie didn't make this, blah, blah, blah. But that's coming from up top. That's not coming for all of it's coming from him. They hired a yes man in Mike Matheny, but Mike Matheny wanted to use his gut too much. He got fired. Mike Schultz was another yes man hire. He ended up complaining about lack of resources. He gets fired. And now Ollie Marmol, you're going to fire this guy for doing exactly what you want him to do? I say no. I say you stick with Marmol and you blow up the 40-man roster. Look, and I'm telling you, and I say this, and it hurts my heart to say it. Goldschmidt has 1 year left after this year. Someone will overpay for Paul Goldschmidt. Go, Miles Michaelis. Someone will pay for Michaelis, although he just signed an extension, so they may not pay as much as we think. But I'm saying, put this roster up, and for the first time in over 25 years, this is a great opportunity for this organization to reset itself, and then maybe do what you're saying. When we get to the point in the offseason where we go, all right, time for a fresh perspective. We've reset our roster. We've made a ton of deals. We're young. We may not compete for a division title in 2024, but we're building for the future. Get Mason Wynn up here. Get McGreevy up here. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, right now, the organization needs to make a decision, and it can't be stick and stay because we have too many good players. The statistics are going to show you, and have shown you, nobody will finish over 500 with this record at this time of year. It's never happened. It's done. So let's take the opportunity to reset, and that's the way I see it. I don't know if you agree. We've got like 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you, although I think that I'm less optimistic on the return that you get. I think Goldschmidt would fetch, something of value. I'm not sure much of the rest of the roster would. As you mentioned, Mike List's contract, I was asking somebody to take on, a fair bit amount of money.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of the roster, one of the reasons why we're 15 games under 500 is they certainly aren't paying up, their trade values very much. But I do think, I think the roster needs to reset in terms of what's everybody's role and who's going to be here. Does Tyler O'Neill have a future here? Does Lars Nootbaar have a future here? What does our outfield look like? Where's Tommy Edman play? Should he be at shortstop? Should he be at second base? Should he be in center field? This team needs to, commit to what it wants to look like here going forward. And so, as far as a roster reset goes, I think it is sorely needed for that purpose. But I'm a little less optimistic that they'll be able to replenish the coffers that way.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right, but I think it's the first time that they've had in 25 years at least to explore it, right? I mean, it's the first time they're really getting to explore this opportunity. They've never been in this position, so take advantage of it. That's what I'm saying.
Yep, agreed. And maybe we'll get to see what it looks like when they draft in the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. Andy Carroll, tell everyone what you're working on right now for Scoops with Danny Mac.
Yeah, profiles of Wilfredo Pereira, who's a pitcher who's having some success down here in AA. He's got a little bit of an unconventional delivery, and he got the win against the Tulsa Drillos here this week. And then Noah Medlinger, who kind of a Brendan Donovan type guy, having success here in AA. Played on Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic. Pretty interesting guy. So those are my two most recent, and I've got some others that I'm working on here for the future. That's
Andy Carroll. Andy, thanks so much. I wish we had another half hour. We could talk about all kinds of stuff.
You bet. Thanks, Randy.
Yep. Andy Carroll. You can find him on Twitter also. Look up, just type in Andy Carroll, Carroll. And he does great work for Scoops with Danny Mac. So knowledgeable. Really fun to have him on, and we'll have him on again. Well, thanks for listening to the Mole Hole here this morning. I was out for 2 weeks. I was here today. I'll be gone the next 2 weeks. But once we get to July, I should be back on a regular schedule here for the show. And stay tuned, either my Facebook or my Twitter, Randy Moe Voice. I'm going to do broadcast information for SIUE women's basketball playing in Italy next week, and I'll be calling those games, so I'm real excited for that. Thank you again, and have a great weekend, and I'll see you after July 4th.
está anunciando sus servicios o lo está obligando a anunciarse? ¿Alguien tomó sus documentos de identificación, como su DNI o pasaporte? La trata de personas es un delito que involucra la explotación de una persona para trabajo,